Welcome to NC State Library's Twitch stream. This is part of the Unboxing Special Collections program. My name is Laura. I am from NC State Library's Special Collections Research Center. Our department, our mission is to collect, house, and make available unique and historical materials, and as well as our university archives. And this is so they can be accessed by researchers. We have a great variety of collection focuses, concentrations, and we also have a great variety of different types of materials, which includes comic books, which is what we are going to be talking about today. And I am so happy to be joined by Maggie and Lucy. Maggie, Lucy, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Lucy. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a student here at NC State.
And hi, I'm Maggie. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a professor in the English department here, and I'm lucky enough to have Lucy in my class this semester.
And I also want to thank my special collection colleagues, Virginia and Victor, who are going to be moderating the stream chat, and also Claire and Hunter from the library's Twitch team, and also Megan for moderating, and also just thank you, Virginia and Claire, for coordinating all this. So, comic books. The first thing that I want to talk about is one of my absolute favorite things in our collections. And this is...
I'm excited to know what this is.
The Edge of Night comic book collections. Now, these are from our a cooperative extension. Here, I'll pass these out.
Yeah.
So...
Let's all take
We
a
all
look.
want to get in there, I
Yes.
know.
These are from our cooperative extension publications collections. So the cooperative extension, what it was established for and what it still is for improving North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, and North Carolinians. And it is for, these were part of their informational series of publishing materials that educated in agriculture, horticulture, homemaking, economics, the 4-H activities, as well as nutrition. And they had a variety of different materials that, including pamphlets, booklets, and just flyer handouts. And this is a unique thing. This is the comic books. Now, this was published in 1980, and the first time I ever came across these, I was thinking, what is this? These are so strange, these are so goofy. It's this melodramatic comic book about this married couple who taken this teenage runaway, and every once in a while they would interrupt the story to talk about nutrition.
Huh.
So,
It's really interesting.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I gotta say, just like you were saying, I was really caught off guard when I was looking at this is the cover I'm looking at here. And you started saying that this was part of an educational series.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The line I'm looking at is, what
Yes.
are you doing with that girl in our house?
Yes. So, context makes this so interesting, and to me makes it so much richer. These were produced by the cooperative extension to educate lower economic families in North Carolina about nutrition and health. The Edge of Night was at the time, popular soap opera. And the two characters in this are the husband and wife, who are some main characters from the soap opera. So the whole study by the cooperative extension was to see if different formats of materials would help educate and retain the kind of information. So and with the study, when these were handed out, it actually proved that it was very, very effective in educating people about the importance of nutrition. And the more I did research, I also found out that the script was supervised by Paul Levitz, who is a very renowned comic book writer and was also president of DC Comics for a time.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And,
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I'm definitely on the page where the story of this runaway and, you know, her efforts to find a place of respite is getting interrupted by the nutrition information.
Yes,
It's not
yes.
necessarily interrupted, but it's hilarious. He just is in the midst of this emotional turmoil where the wife has been throwing dishes at her, and he says, well, maybe we can have a glass of milk.
Yes.
And this leads into a discussion about the benefits of milk and how this poor girl, I'm afraid the only milk I ever saw was in the school cafeteria containers. Mom never was much of a housewife. And then the gentleman goes on to explain how they use milk in their homes.
Yeah, I do. It is. It is.
It's neat.
It's cornball, but also I think for what it is, I think that there is something pretty touching in terms of her. Just kind of the sadness of her backstory, and the information is there, and I think that it's pretty heartfelt overall, and for what they were able to make through this assignment, I think it was a pretty awesome effort. And the more I was making a blog post on it, and when I went into it, it was just like, hey, look at this weird thing. And then the more that I learned about it, the more of its purpose, the people behind it, the fact that it was effective in educating people about nutrition in this very strange way, to me it just was such an exciting thing to come across when in this collection.
I feel like it's so much better than, like, seeing a ridiculous idea that goes terribly is pretty funny. But seeing a ridiculous idea that gets well executed and actually, despite all odds, works well, it's just it's very fun.
Yeah, I think so.
And it is sweet, it also kind of puts a focus on the fact that not everyone is living an idealistic life, and that these things are still important. And, it's actually quite sweet to see her being comforted with this little glass of milk. And it's really neat.
And I think the art is very well done. It is kind of that classic comics style. But now this, all of our collections, if you go to our website, you can be able to make a request to view our materials, and you'd be able to view them in our reading room at DHO Library. And these in particular, they are available to view online. They have been digitized, so I would highly recommend. I'm not sure if I think if you can be able to look, we have a d.lib.ncsu.edu, and if you do the search, in our chat stream, you can, if you go to there, and you'll be able to read them, and it's just, I think, really, I'd highly recommend it. I think that it's a pretty neat read.
It makes me think of, and this is going to show my age, but after school specials.
Yes, exactly.
Where you're kind of learning about safety or learning about different things, like through the.
And I don't know how effective those were, but I know as a kid they still showed even some of the classic little cartoon jingles and Saturday morning cartoons about nutrition, about along the lines of Schoolhouse Rock type stuff, and some of those things still stick with me. So I don't know if that's the kind. I'm assuming that's the same kind of approach that this had in terms. But yeah,
I still think about the hanker for a hunk of cheese.
I was thinking the same thing.
I was also thinking the same thing, because apparently
it came back, right?
Enough of it didn't come back, but it stuck with my parents enough that they decided that this was part of my cultural education. They're on the dinner table one day, somebody said something, and my mom was was like, you don't know the hanker for a hunk of cheese? We're getting this video right now.
Wonderful.
Right now. And it is, so now I've seen it. I'm a little more culturally literate.
That was really how so many of us were indoctrinated about, you know, what we should be snacking on and how a bill becomes a law and much other crucial cultural information.
But yeah, those were made in the 70s to 80s, and they were still being rebroadcast. At least I think that Saturday morning cartoons stopped being a thing in the early 2000s. But when I was a kid, they were still replaying the same ones over and over again, and I think that
They're so cute.
Yes.
If you want, do you want me to sort these back in order to put away?
Oh, sure. Yes. That would be
Do you know,
wonderful.
can I say one more thing about this? I'm sorry, you're gonna have a hard time keeping me
no,
quiet, but
please.
I love looking at vintage comics because you can see like all the objects and the sort of late mid-century modern things in the, you know, the sofas and the tables. I don't know, I just find it so charming to kind of go back in time with the design elements of the comic. Is really, really cool. All the patterns on the outfits and things, and the different cars.
Oh, yeah, they're just, I think, it is not the style that most comics are made in today, but I think it is just like classic and, you know, still timeless, I think.
Mhm.
But, yes, very,
Very neat.
thank you so much.
I feel like we could spend the whole stream
Yes,
on
yes.
one of these
Definitely.
items.
So we have this. I'll just take
I'm
a minute
going to show something from the rare book, from the rare books, and
Very
let me-
exciting.
Let me try to do this.
Ah, yes, in the camera. Let me know if you need help.
here. There we are. Oh, we got the special one up next.
Yeah, this is
Got the
awesome.
big
And
fancy
it's
box.
archival box.
Is
Yeah,
in
thank
there.
you very much. All right, so this is God's Man, a novel in woodcuts by Lynn Ward. It is a part of the genre form, so wordless novels made in woodblock prints. Woodcut novels were also a term. This was published in 1929, a week before the stock market crash. And wordless novels, as they were referred to, they were made from woodcut carvings. And let's really beautiful. They were within this. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Made within the same part of German Expressionism, and you can definitely see that. It's kind of, some of them just look like they're a storyboard, part of a storyboard for like Metropolis or Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Ooh, look at the
And,
hands
yeah.
there.
And they were European. I think that the very first one was, at least, you know, you can never really pin down what the first thing of something is, but it's often considered a Belgian one, but most of them were German. And rooted in a German Expressionism and also socialist movements. So, and this is God's Man by Lynn Ward, is about a young artist who makes a contract with a strange masked man for a paintbrush that, here's definitely like a kind of Fritz Lang-esque.
That's a really amazing
Isn't that
amount of
beautiful?
detail.
I know. And so Lynn Ward brought this kind of a genre format to the Americas, and it did eventually, he's definitely the most prevalent one to make it, but in terms of its, sorry, do you want to page through while
Sure,
I'm?
yeah, absolutely. Here, maybe I'll page a little bit just from the beginning.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
No, it's fun
oh.
to. That's the great thing about a wordless novel, right? You can sort of
Yes,
dip
yes.
into it and make the story from wherever you land. The fonts are
I
great.
know, isn't it?
The typefaces are so cool.
Yeah, and this is, there's a little but these would very much inspire the kind of the graphic novel, beginnings of the graphic novel genre / format, creation method, and Art Spiegelman, artist writer of Mouse, and oh my goodness, why am I blanking? Contractor God, Will Eisner, his oh my goodness, his Contracted God, which are both very important in terms of graphic novels and the popularization of graphic novels. They both have directly referenced this as one of their inspirations. And wordless novels are still around. One of my absolute favorite books of all time is called The Arrival by Sean Tan. And that is a wordless novel. And yeah, so it's a beautiful book. Definitely, I think book as object in terms of just a beautiful item, and what you can also, the narrative, what you can get from it. And yeah.
We're going to be reading The Arrival.
Yes!
And I will
So
give a
good.
second for that as an amazing and beautiful book. One cool thing, just for anyone watching to understand about woodblocks, is that you can just think of them like a stamp. So if you're thinking about what the process might look like, the ink is going to go on the raised pieces of wood, and then the uninked portions are the recessed, carved.
So not
bits
only
of
are
wood.
you're not only chiseling it into a piece of wood with like hand tools, you're also having to think in the negative. Like, this is they're making everything. This is before you could do like computer inversions, molds and stuff. They had to everything, like the stuff you actively did was the light part, which I think is really neat. And I also I think it's interesting seeing this, because I didn't realize that wordless novels sort of preceded a lot of the modern graphic novels. It always, to me, in my head, it was sort of like, oh, you know, comics came first, and then wordless novels are this thing where somebody took the existing idea of comics and was like, what if I changed it? But it's really interesting to see that this appeared first.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to add one more thing there. What another? I mean, the contemporary history is really cool, but also just block printed visual texts have been present in the European and in the Chinese tradition for hundreds and hundreds of years. Obviously, doing different work than these are, so they're kind of not necessarily in the same exact genealogy, but finding ways to share images for various purposes is kind of a human need, it would seem.
Yeah, in terms of thinking that they're more modern, I guess in context, comic strips, or American comic strips, are older than the wordless novel, but 10 years, I think about 10 years before Superman. So yeah.
It's interesting how, you sort of wonder whether the story that Lynn Ward went out to tell was designed to suit this medium, or whether like the sort of high contrast of the medium is like making the story dark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, actually, we do have several other works by him in our archives, but doing some research on him, he also did. He also illustrated children's books, and I was surprised that one of my favorite children's books, The Cat Who Went to Heaven, was featured illustrations by him. So he did do not necessarily such stark, in that case, just downright horrific imagery.
And if I can just sort of like obsess over the like craftsmanship here for just another second, I want to like direct everyone to look at like the use of gray and shading and like things where you see gradients, all of that, because you know this is a wood block print and ink. You don't have gray. You just to make that, you have to have a really fine mix of light and dark spaces put together so that your brain sort of like blends them. And it's just so interesting to me that somebody made this with tools out of a piece
Yeah,
of wood.
like even there where it's almost
It's so finely
impressionistic, isn't it?
detailed.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this is definitely just a beautiful item.
I can rebox.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see.
Now there's another, it is possible to DIY with
Oh,
do
yeah,
lino
make your
cutting and make
own,
your own.
yes.
Yeah, even with a fairly, obviously it takes a long time to attain any real skill, but
Oh, yeah, well.
you can. In fact, I've even seen it done just with pieces of foam. People have cut away pieces of foam and stamped.
Yeah, well, I know just the craft stores probably have, more rubber-based stamps that you can create yourself.
Mhm.
So, yes,
Mhm.
that inspired a new, whole new movement of
Fall break,
Exactly,
creative outlet.
yes. I love it. All right, and you're saying about skill. We also, one of our collections is the Scott Green comic book related collection. And what that collection has is a lot of what are basically zines, amateur, often kind of just self-produced, very amateur, and amateur not in terms of condemning, but really just praising about the resourcefulness, the lack of resources and money and connections and whatnot. So I'll start. This is Poetry Comics. This is a series. Here, let me pass these out. We can share them to YouTube. But so you can see just photocopied on colored paper, staple binding. So these are poetry comics by Dave Morris or Maurice, sorry. But Dave Morris was a author and performance artist, and a lot of what his he's still active. Many of his works were, and many of his pieces were about taking poetry and transforming it into another medium and kind of examining what poetry is, what it can do, so one thing that this is, he took poetry and he cartoonized it. So, yeah, if you've come across, what have you come across here?
I've got the Hollow Man.
Yes, I saw that, and
Which is fun.
yeah, so some of them just
This
also
is
like
I was just going to show, this is another fun one inspired by Gertrude Stein, who said that commas are servile and exclamation points are positively revolting. She was absolutely right, and here are the suggested new punctuation marks.
Oh, that's really fun.
The exclamacolon.
I don't know if anyone's familiar with XKCD. This looks like something just out of an XKCD
I
comic.
wonder if this, just kind of the movement that helped bring. I think
Ooh,
this is
pseudo
very,
question mark. I feel like
oh, I like that.
Some of these look useful.
Yeah. I
super exclama protocolon.
well, sort of small press comic strips, definitely the predecessor to webcomics, definitely, and both how they're distributed, and just often the type of humor and just in format. So, and I was surprised when I was looking that he actually these were collected. So I wanted to actually get some for myself. But yeah, these are so well done, and you can also see that he adapted different art styles for
For
like
different poets, huh?
yeah. Well, this is sorry, I forgot. Dickinson's letter, Emily Dickinson's letters to T.W. Higginson, And they're in the style of, well, they're accompanied by very melodramatic, kind of soap opera-ish comics like Mary Worth, I would say. And kind of insulting, I think, to Emily Dickinson, but but yeah, so Hollow Men,
It's neat to just to underscore the point that you made earlier, is that zines exist outside of all the gatekeeping that traditional publication imposes on what we encounter in print. And so, you can really have all of this freedom, and also freedom to like stray away from aesthetic norms. I mean, you folks watching the Twitch, us here in this room, you can make a zine and feel kind of empowered for it to be scrappy and a little bit
I've actually worked for
polished.
I've been in I wanted to go on a little tangent about this, right? Because I think it's a little bit separated from the meaning of zine that we talk about here. But nowadays, like, I've heard zines referred to where a bunch of artists who enjoy some piece of media will get together and make like fan writing and fan art and put it together. And that's the kind of zine I was in. It was a digital zine because some people made video content and it was never printed. But it was an online thing. I was in a server with a bunch of people. It was very neat. And I also wanted to show the cover of this because it's a Rube Goldberg joke. And I really like that.
So, the different ways that he adapted these, I think is,
And the inside cover, I was flipping through this. The inside cover says, "With apologies to Rube Goldberg,"
yes, yeah,
which
and
I just
also,
love.
yeah, and breakdown of, I think that's what Rube Goldberg also did, just breakdown of every little piece of what the, what kind of like the mousetrap would do. But,
And Lucy, I love that you reminded us that some of these experiments exist in the digital realm too, right? Like, it
That's
doesn't necessarily have to be in print or in paper.
Yeah, I think it's neat because it still keeps some of that same spirit of people moving away. Not that, because fan content for other works basically has no hope of ever getting published, and most people don't want it to get published anyway because that's not their goal really. But it's kind of provides a way for people to come together and make something a little more formalized and fun and cooperative without having to worry about like any official stuff.
Also, yes, Sylvia Plath Halloween mask in time for
Ooh.
yeah, grown.
That
But-
looks like a Sylvia Plath, how a Sylvia Plath poem feels based on I've read
Okay.
I've read like maybe 2 of them, thanks to AP Literature class.
Oh yeah.
But from what I remember, this is how it feels to read a Sylvia Plath
Okay,
poem.
so
It was a lot of dark content.
Mhm.
Well, and I know these are meant to be cut out, but I'm remembering the inked eyes from the Lind Ward.
Yeah.
It really
yeah.
creates a.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that this effect would be the same if you cut it out and used it as
Probably,
an actual
yeah.
mask.
Yeah, I'm the type who would, I don't know, never, even as a kid, it was just like, oh, this would be cool to, use, but no, I'm not gonna.
To destroy a book,
Yes.
you can't just destroy a book.
Oh, is that Whitman drinking a
Oh,
beer?
I think, so, yeah, he has several Whitman.
Is that what he's doing? Or
Yeah. And this,
yes, see, there's Walt Whitman drinking a beer and becoming
Yeah.
Super Whitman. The Adventures of It's a Bard, It's a Poem, It's Whitman. Oh my gosh.
It's really funny.
Walt Whitman, a cosmos of Manhattan, the sun, turbulent, fleshy, sensual, eating, drinking, and breeding. Oh my gosh. That is really wild.
Fleshy and set. I'm definitely catching some of that webcomic humor.
Yes,
coming back
yes.
around here.
And also, Dave Morris, he would send these out to people of note.
Okay.
And some people responded, including Elizabeth Taylor, George Burns. Lily Tomlin's secretary returned it, saying that she tends to not like these sort of things.
Oh, that's kind of disappointing, Lily Tomlin.
But this also has her secretary.
Okay, fair.
But Frank Zappa responded, let's see, including, I don't think that I have anything that is suitable for publication in poetry comics, but thanks for the offer anyways. So, yeah. So, yeah. All right. I can, I'll look at you.
Do we want-
put these, or, yeah. you
Here, I
want
can take
these
them.
back.
Do you want me to put them back in
Yes,
order?
please. Yeah, so,
It's one per folder.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and by
Yeah.
issue.
I got that. Just be a second.
All right. These are also from the Scott Green collection. These are
Ooh.
also
Oh.
zines. So, these are part of the Amateur Press Association movement. Now, these...
I don't know much about that.
Yeah, yeah, these are really, really fascinating to have. If I show you
So
some
was,
other ones.
do we know anything about the collector here and what the goal, like, is it just sort of random things that this person accrued, or was Green collecting with a purpose? Do you know? Sometimes we don't know, but.
I'm not sure for him. I think he had a lot of these in poetry comics. I think besides his own interests, he also had a lot of journals and magazines that talked about comic books and the comic book medium. He also donated some sci-fi materials, but I'm not sure about the zines necessarily. I can understand poetry, how he came across these, but with amateur press associations, they were more like groups. And what it would be is that everybody who is part of the association would create their own work, and then they would send them off to a central mailer. And the central mailer would send them to every other member of the association.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it was like an exchange between
Yes,
all of them.
yeah. So
So
you
like a
sent,
zine distribution method rather than like
yeah.
making it fully person to person? Okay.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Did you pay like a membership fee, maybe, or?
I think to an extent, I think most of it was just you put out, you produce it yourself, and then you produce, you get everything else back. So I think they do have references. I think that there were some, not for this one, I guess, but
One thing I was wondering about these, if people were producing these themselves and sending them to everyone else, how were multiple copies being made of everything? Were people still making wood blocks? Was there a central office? How does that work?
these appear mostly to be Xeroxed. Also, the ones in purple are very likely ditto machines.
Oh, the
So,
ditto.
yeah,
This is like a
so-
tour into
Oh.
the graveyards of technology
Yeah.
here.
So it would be, I'm assuming going just to a copy shop and producing them.
It
be
looked
done.
so. Some of the ink was really spotty. I kind of forgot
Yeah.
that copying was. I
Yeah.
was like, "There's no way this is digital," but
Yeah,
that's
let's
really
see.
interesting.
Yeah, there's one, let's see, I think it might be this one, that, besides different types of ink on different.
I think it's not quite on the dot count.
Oh, sorry, thanks, yeah. So different types of ink were produced, and I'm not sure exactly how, like this is Vision and Scarlet Witch, by the way. So I'm not exactly sure, it doesn't look like it was made by stamp, so I'm not particularly sure how this was made. That would be
Ooh, we
really-
need to understand some copier
Yes, I would
technology of the
love to,
past.
yeah.
That's interesting.
But
I
this-
don't know that much about copiers. I
Yeah.
know.
It's actually kind of pretty.
Isn't
I
it?
mean,
Yeah. But
the this one says has like a little, just to get the kind of informality of the charming informality. I don't mean that as a negative, but this creator says, PPS, I had too many, so one of the typesetting, he can't fix every little glitch, nor would you want to with something like this. Copies of the last 2 pages run off, so if anyone out there just wants to use one as a poster or whatever, just ask.
yes, yeah.
That's
So it's
really
like
interesting.
so casual.
But so when you see these, they are very zine-like. Some of them, like this one, is just entirely his own original comic book. Also, let's see, I think that this is a good example of this. It would be kind of their own. Wait,
I
like this
like the
is
art in this
a
one, actually.
yeah,
It's
like this
really-
one here is a Batman comic book.
Oh,
I mean, a
nice.
fan comic.
Mhm.
And it would also be reviews and a lot of responses to the other zines that they received. And so it was a lot of communication between the different members of the association. And sorry, I should have mentioned, this is particularly from the ISAPA, the Interstate Amateur Press Alliance.
Oh, I was wondering
So,
about that.
yeah.
Look at this monster. Is anybody else getting a kind of Jim Henson
Oh,
vibe?
yeah, I see that. Look at the
Right?
little, yeah,
Yeah, it's a little with the beak.
That's really neat.
Sort of if anybody's watching the reboot of the Dark Crystal,
Oh, okay.
feels a little bit like a Skeksis.
Yes. Oh, cool.
That's very neat. It's really cool, I think, hearing about how people communicated before the internet and stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is how it was. This is before.
And you had to wait. You had to
Yeah,
wait
but-
for the mail to bring these things
It's
to
like on the one hand it was so different, but on the other hand you could still see them doing like the way they were all printing and sending out to everyone and then responding to each other.
Mhm.
You've got yourself a social media right there.
Exactly.
Great point.
Yeah, of course, pre-social media and Reddit and message boards and group chats. And not in this case, but I have heard of cases where there would be flame wars in between these different, and it would last like for months because they would have to respond to each
Oh.
other months in between. And
That's so
yeah,
funny.
but so yeah.
Oh, we're learning a little bit in the
Yes, I saw
chat
some of that,
about Scott Green. Served the National Writers Union and maintained membership in the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, and also served 4 terms as a state legislator in the New Hampshire House of Representatives.
Wow.
Yes.
Busy.
Busy individual. I love that point, Lucy. That it's like it is and it makes you kind of remember that all the early experiments in digital social media came from practices that were pre-existing. It's not like they
Yeah.
completely
Yeah, I think
reinvented something.
it's nice to keep in mind when I think people are a little quick sometimes to be like, oh, the internet ruined everything. The internet changed everything. We weren't like this before the internet, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot more in common than people realize. 'Cause it's still just like humans kind of stay the same.
Oh yeah.
And they want to comment and they want to weigh in.
Be
and
passionate
they
about
wanna-
things,
Mhm.
but yeah. Another one of these is.
Hey, this one even says fanzine on it.
Yeah, fancy.
That's really, I was not expecting that to come, because that's the kind of thing I was talking about.
Mhm.
I didn't really expect that to come up at all.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
And fan art. This is this guy's fan art. So.
Yeah, here, I want to
Okay.
read the little introduction paragraph here real quick, 'cause that's really fascinating. I love that after my little tangent there about how I'm like, people stay the same, I still totally was not expecting fan art to have existed before
yes,
the
yeah.
Oh, yeah. People almost immediately, isn't it funny that I mean, I think that's like one of the ways that comics took hold, is that people really did aspirationally or really identify with
This
characters and want to be part of those
Yeah.
stories in whatever way they could.
This introduction, by the way, is really cute because the guy's like, first of all, I want to thank you so much for buying this, and thank you everyone who supported the first issue, and and thank you to the people who sent in comments and suggestions. Like, it's so so much care goes into this. That's amazing.
And zines do exist today. Like you said, a lot of them seem to be digital collaborations, but I think zines a lot are like personal sort of historically I'd say 90. A lot of what's been collected and archived are ones from the 90s, often associated with Riot Girl and
Mhm.
punk music.
Mhm.
But this is, I think, just a really great kind of peek into historical.
Yeah, this is from, what year is this from again?
These are late 70s to early
Wow.
80s.
There's one other thing. This is super niche, but I want to point out one other thing I'm seeing in this. So it's in the words, so I don't really think the doc cam can see it. But there's this thing where he writes, like, thank you, where is it? We want this fanzine to be, he says, we want this fanzine to be, and then he puts 2 commas and says to be invincible. And that's an example of, I think it's called like a textism, where it's things that wouldn't be necessarily represented out loud or aren't grammatically correct, but you have these alternate ways of expressing. And that just caught my eye because that's something I do when I'm texting people. I'll put 2 commas or 3 commas to show like a pause or a thought. And I'm very surprised because the repetition of the words shows that it's not just a typo. It's like very intentional. I just think that's really cool.
Well, and I think one of the things we didn't know we were going to discover today was how insufficient our standard use of punctuation marks is.
Exactly.
This is like becoming a theme.
And yet. Okay.
Oh, so this makes me think about if is anybody else watching What If?
I've watched. Yes.
Do you almost feel like? I almost feel like that's like Marvel kind of trying to leverage fan fiction within its own like economic
I didn't think
circuit,
of it that way,
and so it makes me feel a little bummed out.
Oh.
I still really like. I do enjoy the show, but it would it would be a shame if those kind of experiments become like so mainstream that they're done just by the.
Well, I don't know. Maybe
not.
Maybe not to. Maybe.
Switch.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. If you put them just what you can, and
I'm just gonna,
yeah. Just make sure they're
Thank
all in one. Well, maybe to an extent, just that a lot of the creators are nerds themselves who love the stories. So
Very
maybe
true.
it's like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
this is my opportunity to write my own fan fiction and put it on there. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay. That's
Maybe-
a good point. I
maybe
think
I'm being a
I need
little
to take
too-
your generous view.
maybe I'm being too generous, but.
Yeah, I mean, whatever happens, I don't think people are gonna stop writing fanfiction.
Oh
No,
yeah,
very
and
true,
yeah,
very
I
true.
So much.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of what feeds, contributes to the just the movement of it.
Ooh, well, I
All
have no
right.
idea what's coming
Oh,
next.
okay.
I'm so excited.
So, does anybody want to take a peek at some '90s gimmick covers?
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
All right, let's see.
100%.
And I don't mean that I'm not showing this just because the new Venom movie is coming out, or has it come out already? I don't remember.
actually know.
Sorry, yeah. I'm trying to support movies in theater, but I can't keep track of everything. So a lot of these are Venom. So this is part of the Douglas Ward comic book collection, and a lot of these are comic books starting from the I think we have some from the late 70s to the mid 90s, but a lot of them are from the late 80s to the early 90s. And so a lot of what I'm showing are from this collection. During the 90s, a good way to kind of drum up sales would be having very, very flashy covers.
Yeah, I was going to say, somebody laid out a little money for that one.
Yeah, so you can see sort of the background is this kind of spider webby, flashy kind of.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but there's actually like web on the. Oh, there you got it. Yep.
Can I do it? I think I had it, but then
You
I
had it. Oh,
yeah,
there it is.
Yay!
Like one of those exclusive Pokemon cards.
Oh,
They were like,
oh,
it's more special because they put some foil in it.
Oh yeah. Let me show.
Oh, and
you.
just a quick, we were just hearing from the chat, and I didn't know this, that What If was actually a print series.
Oh yes,
I
we
didn't
have
know
some
that.
of those within the Word collection too.
Well,
yeah.
there you go.
Yeah,
See?
yeah. So it's always been.
Ooh,
It's,
and does that one have texture?
it does, yes. We
Oh,
wanna feel
ooh la
the
la.
texture. Yeah, you can
So
see
this-
this is like his muscles are part
Oh,
of
it
it.
is. Oh,
Yeah.
golly.
So this has like
Those muscles are ridiculous.
Yeah.
topography. It's like it's got an up and down to it. I don't know how much people can. I'm trying to figure out the best way to show this.
Oh,
for-
there it was when the light kind of reeks over it. There it is.
Yeah, you can see that
Ooh.
those
Yeah.
highlights. It's like I'm curious how they did, if it's like embossed or.
think they, like, press it?
see,
That would be
yeah,
my
it's kind
guess.
of pressing if you can see.
Oh, by the way, the
Yes.
ads are
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Maggie loves the ads.
I
in these.
adore ads
Yeah.
in comics because they tell you so much about what people were, or what they assumed people were gonna want. Like, here's a great one for the Turbo Touch by Triax,
Oh,
a
boy.
new game controller.
Yeah, here's a similar one. Let's see if it's.
So these covers are all for the same series.
No, different series. Most of these were
Different.
number one, sort of to encourage people to
Oh.
buy, and it's
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. This one also has a lot of, for
You can
the,
see his eyes are part of.
Oh,
like,
yeah, yeah.
ultimate protection.
a lot of up and down on this one.
Yeah.
Trying to narrate so people can like.
Oh,
get the
yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
It's really neat.
and we could go and all day, and I have somebody else would be better at describing the idea of gimmick covers, of trying to drum up sort of comic books as a collector's item, and it still exists today, especially with variant covers. But it's historical, especially in the early 90s, and just it deals a lot with supply and demand, economics, rarity,
Also like
speculation.
Pokemon cards.
Yes, exactly. Very much so. Very much so. So these were the normal type of issues. We still have a lot of variant covers, but normally those are because of rarity wouldn't be the term, but sort of the percentage available of the regular collections. So the percentage of what a comic book's available, just the cover. So it is for something that's a rare, that is a variant cover. It would be the same content, just a different cover. So, and that makes it a collector's item. These were aimed to be collector's items because and sorry, this is the sort of thing that somebody would be better to describe at, but really just these types of covers that I'm showing were meant to grab attention and make people want to buy them, both like kind of like what we've been talking before about, not only as material to read, but also as a book as an item, an object as art.
You show it off on your table or whatever. This is such a great page, just speaking of the ads, because there's, first of all, you have the ad that's actually incorporating a comics figure, and it's actually for mental health services, which is interesting, because it tells you a lot, like, of what they think the people reading are going to need. But then on the same page, we have some much more lighthearted things. Like, I was just looking down here, you can get a top secret book safe. You can get some sea monkeys.
Oh boy.
X-ray specs, fingerless leather gloves, and a mini spy camera that really works. So if that's not a mashup of cultural information, I don't know what is.
Wow. that is a lot happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last Venom one that I have, but if you want to
really see that one.
How is that? Can we get some ASMR there?
Here, I'm gonna hold this
Oh,
up.
okay.
I'm gonna, we've got like a sandy texture on basically everything that's not the black here. Well, the black and yellow aren't, but the eyes, the tongue, teeth, whatever's,
His, his
I'm not very good.
symbol.
Whatever's going on down here. I'm gonna hold this up to the microphone now and see if people can like hear that. That's the sound it makes when you touch it.
Do you think there's something about this that's like also impactful because we're so accustomed, like anyone buying these would be so used to the kind of throwaway nature of other just slick covered comics, and so it feels extra different because it's on a comic. Like
Well, I think possibly, yeah. And again, there's a lot of information about gimmick covers that I'm both not an expert enough to talk about, but a lot of the things in terms of publishing these as collector's items did not work out. Like, look up the Death of Superman issues where people were buying bulk copies and thinking that they were going to put their kids through college with them.
Oh, golly.
Yeah,
Oh,
so yeah, that's hours worth of discussions. I'm sure that they've written papers and books about them, but yeah, so all this shiny and raised and textury stuff.
Very cool. I had
Yeah.
never seen those before.
very
That's what I
Oh,
would
we have
just
another
give a
one?
plug
Oh,
for
yes.
special collections because that's
I'm
what's
just
so
piling
cool
these
about
up.
having all these materials. You just never know. In some ways, and sometimes even it's easy to forget what's in because with comics there's so many pieces in every collection,
Oh yeah.
which just boxes and boxes.
So these are all, what I'm showing is Marvel, because the Ward collection also has ones from DC, Image, Dark Horse, and other smaller press comic book publishers. But Marvel was the one that had the most of the interesting covers, and it was just nice to kind of like keep everything kind of as a theme. So here's another of like the raised cover, and also an example of using kind of the prismatic sort of full kind of foily image. So I think that this one is really well done. I think it's a good use of both the raised textures, putting on a 3D effect, and I think the chrome element is really good for this cover, and I think it's very well done.
I like that one and the Venom one a lot. I can't like actually speak to what the comics of that era were like, but my kind of impression of this is it's really neat because most of the comic book covers we've looked at have been really like flashy, and there's a lot happening. It's like boom, you got speech bubbles, you got your big advertisements, you got the exciting, shocking twists, all that. And so putting out into that comic store this kind of cover where it's just like stark black and like basically black and white in this one, or in the one we're looking at now it's like black and silver. It really seems like a way to make your comic stand out.
It also feels, and I mean, this is not something you could ever know for sure, but it feels like an experiment towards a more serious material form for the comic, like towards a more graphic novel, like aesthetic, which is sort of interesting to think about since it's obviously like a totally a traditional superhero comic.
You still get some of that.
Yes.
Jim Rhodes, the armor and the attitude, but
Yeah.
aesthetically, like you were saying, it's definitely a move towards something that looks more like quote unquote sophisticated,
Right,
although, like,
exactly.
high drama, intense kind of stuff that they're trying to advertise. And then I bet the inside of the comic though is going to be
A bit more traditional. Yeah.
Get a few more.
a nice-
People really thought that you were gonna, if you were collecting comics, you were definitely collecting baseball cards because I've seen that they're definitely trying to
it's definitely a Venn
do some
diagram
chain
there,
marketing
yeah.
there. Yep.
Yeah. But also in terms of like the black and white kind of chromatic is also the influence of a lot of the black and white indie comics of the time, and also Frank Miller, who is Sin City, and also sort of the more limited colors of some of his DC and Marvel books. But you can see that kind of influence.
It's neat, like even though they weren't directly acknowledging indie comics at all. Like I imagine these big companies didn't want to acknowledge indie comics, but they still had to respond to them and pay attention to like what was happening in the rest of the comic scene, if they wanted to, do good business.
Yeah.
It's neat.
Okay, let's see. Okay, here's another one that's
wow.
very,
Boy.
yeah. I'm wondering
Look
if
at
this
that
is just going to be like a bunch of flashing
We got a
lights,
shiny
but-
one coming down the
Okay, yeah, I think
pipes.
that's actually.
that works pretty
it's a little
well.
bit. It's a little bit out there, but I think it's kind of being captured effectively.
It
on
really
Oh
there.
yeah, good,
overshadows
good,
what's happening
Shout
in
out
the
to
Yes.
before we leave War Machine behind, which is actually a series
yeah.
I'm not familiar with, but we've got a shout out from the chat to Black superheroes like
Oh,
War
yeah.
Machine making the cover. And what year
Exactly.
was that?
This was. Let's see. It only has the date.
It's always
on
hard
there.
to
Oh yeah,
actually
yeah.
find the date.
This is kind of like what we in libraries call TP Verso. So it is April of 1994. So,
1994.
yeah. Volume 1, number 1. So I know that Rhodey as War Machine had appeared before that, but this might be his first solo series, probably, unless, yeah.
Neat.
Very cool.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So,
What
yeah.
is this? The
Fantastic Four, number
Wow.
375.
You can't even see the name
Right.
of the
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. This is, I think, this might seem counteractive, but I think people who are buying, number 375 are going to,
Yeah.
recognize the title enough that, but.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It looks like, and I know they do that with magazines nowadays too, like they hide the title. It feels like counterpoint to what we were just talking about, going more minimal than the other comics. This seems like the
This was
opposite
92.
strategy, where
This was 93. So both
Yeah.
in the same time, so yeah.
instead of trying to set yourself apart from the other comics, you just got to be louder.
Yeah.
That is really impressive.
Yeah.
Look at that, and it's like you get like the multicolored kind of look with the light on it. That is a lot.
Yes.
It is the actual like design behind it though is really pretty.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I like the prisms.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're really neat.
All right, let's see, what do I have? Yeah, I showed that one. All right, here is another
So you sort of ended up
anniversary
in the hot
issue.
seat over there.
Yeah,
We'll help figure them out at the end.
Yeah, so here is
Ooh, this is a
another
neat
flashy
one.
one, and this
Whoa,
one I've
okay.
been wondering if it's going to be able to be best.
That
this
actually
is like
shows
a
it pretty well.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
bad.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Aha, amazing.
Oh, that's right, yes.
So,
And look at the very serious kind of
Yeah.
monumental header.
Yeah, you got that like look at the font on this. I just gotta the font for anniversary issue is so it's like different from the normal comic font. It's
oh yeah.
It's like a
very-
Roman font. It's like definitely
Yeah.
saying, here, this is a
It's-
monument to
Hold
our.
on, let me see if I can get this.
Yep.
It's a serif font.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, not only like the really cool hologram cover, but also it has
Oh, it has a
fold-out poster.
Oh,
So
boy.
yes.
Now that
That's
is fancy.
exciting.
Yeah. So collector's item. I'm not sure if most people would decide, oh, okay, I'm going to put this on my wall, or this is just another thing that makes me want to cherish this comic book. But I think probably depends on collectors versus readers. Maybe also age would have it, but
Yeah, is that pasted on? No, it's
it's part of it. Yeah.
it's printed on. It almost feels like, this is gonna sound strange, but like a silk screen.
oh.
Like it's got, you can tell where it
I
ends and the
wonder,
other page
yeah.
begins, but I don't know how they would have done
Yeah,
that.
I
Oh, there's a
don't
little extra.
That's
Yes.
Oh,
really,
is that a little?
Yeah, it's a little superhero
so,
apple and
food,
cinnamon. Yeah, that reminds me.
Oh, for it's for apple.
Yeah.
Apples. What do they call those? Apple and cinnamon
yeah.
Cheerios, whatever they are.
wow.
Yeah, I wish I should have looked for one, but famously there would be Hostess snacks,
Oh, okay.
and like specifically for Marvel comics, and they would have like Spider-Man or the Hulk solving the problems with a fruit pie or stuff.
So
like
that's
that. So,
funny
yeah.
because we had the original, like the extension ones that are trying to promote healthy eating, and then you have the actual comics that are promoting unhealthy snack food. So maybe they really needed these other comics to, get people drinking milk and stuff.
That
like
actually makes it. I guess the ads weren't worked into the actual story, but if considering the ads were worked in with the characters and having these characters solve problems with the snack food or whatever, I think it makes it feel a lot more reasonable that they came up with this idea about having it be part of the story, because it's still different, but I almost wonder if that was kind of a response. They were like, these comics are teaching kids bad things, so we copy the style of the
Okay.
comics, but put in good messages instead.
Yeah.
Except they couldn't have it as paid advertising, because no healthy food companies are paying to advertise.
I think that's a great theory. It would actually be really interesting to think more about that. I mean, that's part of what makes comics so interesting, is they contain just all this cultural information beyond just the story that's at hand.
it seems like with mainstream comics you get something that like I think you get it on a lesser level with novels where it's like sometimes they have to bend to like pressures from what's cool in the market right now, but a novel is so much more like seen as somebody's like, you know, it's your life's work, it's your magnum opus, it's your artistic vision, whereas these serialized comics are like, it's gonna get somebody to buy the next comic, that's the goal, and it's gonna earn money. And like, you want to tell a cool story, but as long as you're working for a big company like this, you kind of have priority number one laid out for you. And I think that there are probably a lot of interesting changes you could look at based on that.
Mm-hmm.
Just in so many, and I think I am very much a champion, not only for comic books as pop art and pop culture, but also I think within, you know, even the cynicism of it's a big toy selling industry, but also I think that there are so many like legitimately great narratives, artistic storylines told.
Definitely, yeah.
Or then you had that one comic that was sneaking in like outreach to young boys in the 80s who might not, you know, talk about mental health, right? So, so that I thought that was actually really
something really
interesting.
modern. I would imagine that you would think that that would be but something that they were still working with.
Yeah, I don't mean to be like, I think it already came across, but I'm not here to be like, oh, it's disgusting. There's sellouts. It's just
no, not at all.
It's
not at
like
all.
it's fascinating.
No, it's just
cool
a
to look
different,
at.
you know, different texts are serving different
And what they
markets and different readers and different.
And I think what
absolutely.
I was trying to jump
I
off
agree.
of what
I
you were
agree
saying.
with you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I got that. I just wanted to make sure for.
of
of
course. No.
I don't want anyone quoting me on this later.
Yeah, thinking you're against
Misquoting,
comics.
yeah,
No, definitely not. And that brings us around to this idea, like just because it's popular and just because it's maybe not initially conceptualized to be this enduring thing doesn't mean that it's not awesome, right? Like,
Oh, this.
Ooh,
cover-
speaking of which.
Hold on, we got a cool
Whoa.
thing.
This I just legitimately
Hang on.
love, not in an ironic level. I really love the boldness
Yeah,
of the covers. This
it's
is certainly
awesome.
a foil cover.
That might be my
but
favorite. And then look at that
Whoa.
inside
Oh, yeah.
cover.
Yeah.
Hold on, this gives me if I can go on a short
please
tangent.
do.
I just
Oh,
wanna,
are you gonna, yeah, talk
if you
about
look at this inside cover that's just like flat foil,
Yeah.
that's so neat. It looks like that's what they printed the whole thing on. And this reminds me, it just gave me like a flashback to when I was in like elementary school. I would take the tin foil from my lunch, whatever, like from my sandwich, and I would put it on the table and I would flatten it out until it was reflective like that. The back cover has it too.
Yeah,
And it would look just like this. It would have like, I just noticed there was
it's
another
like its
one.
own text in there.
And it had, because it would have some like little creases in it, but it would mostly be big and flat and smooth. And I just was like, wow.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah.
But here's
That is
what we have is a
amazing.
wraparound cover.
Wow,
Yeah.
look at that.
Oh,
That's
wow.
so
Really
awesome.
bold covers. I really love the bold covers here.
And I love how I think the other one we were looking at with the prism one was really loud. This one, I think they work it in a lot because it looks like the characters are reflective too.
Yeah.
It's easier to see what's happening on the cover, but it's still very big and bold and loud. I like that a lot.
Yeah, not only the different kind of reflective art within it, but also kind of different aspects of their powers, of their features. I really think it's well done.
That's awesome.
Cool.
And so I was like kind of looking at then you get into I was kind of enjoying this first page
Yeah,
because
isn't that a
it's
nice
such an everyday, we've talked a little bit about how women in comics in this period are often super sexualized. I have no idea what's going on in this panel, but I appreciate that this person is in just average everyday.
That's
I
a
think
very
she's-
normal
I
looking
think she's just-
person.
Yeah.
I think she's taking a morning
Just
run.
on a run?
Yeah, look,
Oh,
her weights. Yeah.
Okay, this is me also showing my age. My mother totally had those little weights that you used to like
Yes.
walk around the neighborhood with.
Yeah, this is 1994.
Yep,
Wow.
absolutely. I can
That's
remember
really nice.
how rubberized they were.
I just noticed this card might oh no, it's a subscription.
Oh, a little
thing, 'cause
subscription.
sometimes they would include limited edition cards in it too. But
Oh wait, hold on. I got to take a look at
Oh,
this.
yes.
This is so much happening on this page.
yeah, look
That looks straight out of like
Oh yeah, they want your input. There you go.
old-timey Microsoft Word with the word art. Like that's what I'm seeing.
yeah.
Because look at, you've got like, there's, somebody just put every effect they had on here.
shadow your.
You got the shadow, you got the multicolors, like the little borders, and oh my god, look at this. Not only is there a shadow, there's a like a little blue. I don't think the people in the doc cam can see this. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
There's like a direct shadow text.
Yeah,
where
like, making it a 3D effect.
There's
so,
a 3D is the effect.
Edge, yeah.
There's a blue part that is edged out behind it, like out to the left, and there's a shadow, and it changes color. Somebody just went for it.
Yes.
They're like, we have all the new toys.
Just checked every box.
So, in the chat, we have someone pointing out that it's cool to have the wraparound cover.
Oh yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had a few wraparound covers, but I thought that I wanted to show off this one. There was one comic that had a variant issue. It was an X-Men comic that had both wraparound and fold out.
Whoa.
So it was like basically
Whoa.
4 pages of one.
It's like a panorama.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
But yeah,
big.
we didn't have that variant.
That's
but-
crazy.
but-
Yeah.
so-
I think wraparound covers are really neat because I haven't seen a lot of them, but I gotta imagine you have to design it so that it looks good as just the front, but then continues on to the
good
back.
point.
Like you can't just make a full image and then fold it in half. That's not gonna work. You're gonna have like an incomplete cover with people's faces all folded up, and it must. I think that a lot of thought has to go into this. It's very cool. We got anything else to look at?
No, that's
And we're perfect on.
I think we
Yeah.
are.
Awesome.
Yes.
I can't see the clock from here.
Oh
so
yeah,
it's
it
anyone's
is.
guess.
It's 105, 106.
Oh, great.
So
Good times.
Okay.
thank you,
Yeah,
Laura,
thank you.
for bringing out all these treasures. What a
Thank you so much
treat.
for having me.
Yes, okay.
Oh, and thank you so much, Lucy, for being available. This was tons of fun.
Yeah, just thank you everybody. Thank you my colleagues in Special Collections. Thank you the Twitch team. Thanks everybody who came and watched. It was a lot of fun talking. It was a lot of fun talking with Maggie and Lucy. So
Oh, we do have one final question,
yes.
and maybe we'll see if Virginia's going to answer, but we
Yeah.
do. But you
Yeah, we
actually know the
do.
answer to this question.
we do. It hasn't been properly processed yet. It might be something that it'll be more information will be released about it. But we do have this, and yeah, I think that we have a very unique comics, and like with the Edge of Night, just something found within another kind of collection. So
Super great. All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.